Hey guys, Thetcglover here, coming on a video today. Now, today's video is going to be talking about how to side effectively this format. Now, I am no genius on the game. From what I've seen, from the difference between this format and the last format was basically that the last format, it was dominated by two different decks. A lot of the time they had a couple of sides that could be easily applied to both decks, and then it was a really good side. However, because those two decks were so dominant, you know, the format was just not diverse whatsoever. I think it was the least diverse format that ever existed. Even GOAT format, I think, was slightly more diverse than that one. There were a couple of sides that were actually really good and they hit both decks. So you could easily run that and you could dedicate all 15 of your side cards to those decks. However, this format is a completely different thing. They've obviously done the ban list in a way so that there is so much diversity. Even by looking at YCS Toronto, even though I don't know how many of the decks there were in the top 16, but there was like 10 or something like that. So incredibly diverse, and each of these different decks have a different winning strategy that they apply. You know, they're all differently, and what that says to a player who's playing a particular deck, you know, which is everyone, even though everyone's got a bunch of different decks on them, how am I going to side against this deck which has a completely different winning strategy to a deck like this deck, which is different, completely the opposite, where, you know, it's more aggressive than control. So how do I apply my side to both of them? Now, what you have to basically do is, unfortunately, you're going to have to broaden your sides to a point where you don't actually really hit a deck whatsoever. You just use it to facilitate your deck itself. You know, if you, for instance, okay, you play Dark World a lot, so then you side Consecrated Light, which is a card that stops dark monsters being special summoned. You know, it stops a lot of things happening, so they can't summon any dark monsters, and then you can just do whatever you want after that. So that's a good side against them. But because you actually, in this format, you're playing such a many different bunch of decks, dedicating two of your side cards to one deck is not really very effective. Now, you need to actually think about your sides in the sense that, how am I going to hit a few different decks but with just one card of it, so that you can side these couple of cards in which are like two of a card, because if you've just one in your side, then you will never see it. But if you put two of them, then you'll be able to hit about 3 or 4 different decks, and that actually makes it a really good side this format. For instance, let's take Goza Match. Now, Goza Match hits Dragon Plants pretty hard, it hits Wind-Ups really hard, and it hits Six Samurai as well. Those 3 decks, Wind-Ups and Six Samurai, aren't really played much. However, you will come across them now and again in a format like this. Dragon Plants being the most dominant deck of this format so far, even though it's only been one YCS, but there was a lot of people playing that deck. So being able to hit a really meta deck, but also being able to hit other decks as well, like that are on the outside on the tier 2, tier 3 levels, being able to hit those cards like that is actually really, really good. That's what you want to do. You want to hit the best deck so that you can still beat the best deck, but you want to be able to hit other decks as well. So Goza Match can definitely go into the side this format, as opposed to last format where you would get it off now and again, but it just isn't effective enough because of the way that the deck's played. You just couldn't do it. Goza Match is a good one. It poses as a much better side simply because that it actually broadly hits every deck that you want to hit with that card. However, a card like Spell Shattering Arrow is more targeted. It hits a multitude of different decks, but you actually wouldn't run it because of the fact that you're waiting on your opponent to do something that's specific to what their deck does. For instance, Spell Shattering Arrow allows you to destroy all face-up spell cards on the field, and then they take 500 damage for each one. So into time, it's a good card, but in general, your opponent has to activate 6 Samurai United, then you flip it up, and then they take 500 and it's destroyed. So that's fine. So it's a 1-for-1, and it's not really going to stop them from winning, you know. So Wind-Ups, they have Wind-Up Factories. Let's say they activate 2 of them, and then you flip it up and you get a +1. That's good. It's just that the deck doesn't necessarily need Wind-Up Factory to win. So yeah, that's why Spell Shattering Arrow is good. It's just not good enough to deal with enough decks this format. Even though I'm talking about broad in the sense that, you know, just hit a card, use a card that hits a lot of bunch of decks. Cards like Imperial Iron Wall and Debunk this format actually have proven to be really, really good side cards. This is more of a case of me talking about 2 different cards in general, rather than just talking about how broad they can be, even though they can be. Imperial Iron Wall obviously prevent your opponent from moving cards from play, so it hits dragons and it hits Prophecy, just like they did last format. Debunk, it hits so many decks, and it actually hits meta-relevant decks as well. It hits Mermails, it hits Dragon Plants, it hits Priestess in spell book, so that means they have no giant beta anymore. So you can actually use it to hit quite a few different cards, and that's why Debunk is a really good card this format. However, running both of them together can actually cause problems because you need to be able to banish with Debunk to actually get the effect off. So having both of them in your side at once can be a bit of a problem, but I actually side both of them just because I know they won't conflict too much. Even though they only it hits those decks as well. It actually hits Boojins and Dark World as well, and I actually have to look at what each deck is playing this format, and you realize that stuff like Imperial Iron Wall actually hits pretty much every deck, even a little bit, so that you can actually side it in and it might actually clinch the win for you. For instance, Madolche, they only have one card that banishes, and that's Hootcake. So if you can flip up at the right time, then Hootcake is a dead summon and it can't do anything, and it stops them from doing their whole OTK shenanigans, stuff like that. So it's really, really good, and it actually get you the win even though you wouldn't expect it to. And stuff like Eva Swarm as well, they have Korekion, which they normal summon it when they have like very low cards in hand because you've simplified the game state. If you flip Iron Wall at the right time, then Korekion is a dead summon and they can't summon the Ophion and they can't do anything. You know, Murmurs, you can use it against Tidal, and Tidal is a very annoying card which can actually give them the game back if they need to. Even though that the cards actually hit their key plays rather than be a blanket card, I still feel like if you can side in a couple of cards like that against particular decks that are really meta relevant, then it's completely fine. You can totally do that and still have a very, very solid side deck. There are other cards like Royal Decree. Decks that are like Dragoonities and Dragon Plants and Mermails can actually run Decree, and it would be quite effective because they're quite monster heavy. They run like 25 to 30 monsters. So if you do that, then basically you can run Decree and it lets you do whatever the hell you want because you don't have to worry about Gauze and you don't have to really worry about Jagodia because trap heavy decks don't run Gauze or Jagodia. So you can easily just stop their back row and then just make an OTK right there, and there's nothing to start. They can't stop you at all unless they have Veiler, but even then you can still go on because they can't stop you. The last thing is that even if after all of this you've managed to make your side deck target about 20 different decks in the format, if there's still a couple of decks that you still have to play against and you have no sides to beat them, just put in something really, really broad like Prohibition, okay? I'm saying something like Prohibition because you can actually just call anything that actually might help you, but you need to have a very good, intelligent knowledge of a particular deck and how it works and understanding what is the most important card to be able to prohibit with Prohibition. Cards like that require you to actually really monitor the meta and understand how it works. And I think that this format in general needs to be monitored by each player, and they need to actually look at the YCSs and look at what people are playing and really understanding how their side cards help them. Because if you just like listen to what other people are saying and like, oh yeah, put in Prohibition because it's a good card, and then you just play against a deck and you're like, I've never played this deck before, but apparently Prohibition's a good side, so I'll side that in, and then you end up calling the wrong thing, and it doesn't really make a difference. It's like you'll lose because you don't really understand what you're doing. So that's it. That's how you should effectively side this format. Comment down below particular sides that you feel like are going to do really well this format. I have a whole bunch of cool sides I can think of, stuff that's specific to certain decks as well, because I side in Gen X Ally Duradark because I run gadgets, so I can actually use it and then make Gigan X and stuff like that, so it is a very effective card. But for you and your deck in particular, what kind of size can you run that can actually blanket hit a bunch of different decks this format? And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. So I hope you guys enjoyed watching, and until next time, the Thetcglover is out.